Good morning, and I'm glad everybody who made it. It was not the easiest time to try to get here. I'd like to thank everyone who's made this possible. It really has been a remarkable team effort, starting with Francis Shen and Mark Frankel, who we'll hear from in a little bit, from the American Academy for the Advancement of Science, and of course Vanderbilt Law School, and all the wonderful people here. The program that we're doing here is part of a larger effort that the FJC is making, and we really are trying to do more with less, because our financial resources have been pretty tight. We've had to look for ways to get as much leverage out of those resources as we can. And one way to do that is through collaborations like this. And you'll see more collaborations. We're already seeing more collaborations with law schools, with nonprofits, with ways we can reach more people using the resources that we have. Another part of this is the notion that being a judge is a lot more difficult than it used to be. And it's not just because of caseloads, and it's not just because of what's going on in society, but it's because the world has just gotten a lot more complex. There's a lot more things that we need to know about in order to do our jobs adequately. And we can't possibly know everything about everything. We can't possibly know even enough about everything. But we have to try to get as close to that as we can. And programs like this are part of that strategy, to get enough familiarity with something like what's going on in neuroscience to at least recognize the issues when they come into court and have a way of thinking about them. And we're going to be doing a lot of other work of similar nature going forward. So this is a very important project which has given us a lot of insights as to how to do this kind of work, how to get people to think about complex issues, how to get people to think about interdisciplinary subjects. I've mentioned to some of you that we're doing another really interesting collaboration with Vanderbilt that will debut this fall. And it's a mid-career program for district judges. This is something we've never had. You have baby judge school, you learn how to be a judge, but 5-10 years in, you're in a very different place, you need very different things. And we've never really had a focus on, well, where are you and what do you need, and what's been good and what's been hard, and what tools do you need that you don't have. So we're going to be doing that with some of the same people here at Vanderbilt this fall, and we hope that will be the first of many such programs. So that's really all I wanted to say, other than it's great to be with all of you. I hope we have lots of good conversation. If you have any concerns about where we're going with judicial education, please let me know. All ideas are welcome. We're going to do everything we can to meet the learning needs of the judiciary. And again, thanks to everyone who made this program possible, and I'm just going to sit back and be a student for the next day and a half.
Thank you. I want to invite next to the stage Dr. Mark Frankel, the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Dr. Frankel and AAAS are new partners this year, and we couldn't really be more excited about this. I hope you'll say a little bit about AAAS, but just for those who aren't familiar, there really isn't an intersection of law, policy, science that this group is not actively aware of or involved with, and we were just tremendously excited to have this partnership, and in particular to have Mark's knowledge. They run programs like this many times over, and it's just been wonderful to work with you and to have your input here. Dr. Frankel is the Director of Scientific Responsibility, Human Rights, and Law, and we look forward to your welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Well, good morning. I want to add my welcome on behalf of AAAS. That is the acronym we use to identify ourselves. The American Association for the Advancement of Science. I also want to thank the MacArthur Research Network for inviting us to co-sponsor this event. We're really very delighted to do so. Let me just say a few words about AAAS generally before talking about our connection to this particular event. We are the largest multidisciplinary scientific society in the world. That is, we represent all of the disciplines as opposed to being very specialized in one scientific realm or another. We publish a leading journal in science, appropriately titled Science. And we also have a variety of programs. For example, we're very much interested in science education in K through 12, as well as at the collegiate level. We're also this year celebrating our 40th anniversary of the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowships Program. This is a program whereby we bring scientists and engineers from throughout the country to Washington for a year or two. We're based in Washington, D.C. And they get an opportunity to work with members of Congress and their staffs or agency officials from the NIH to the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, Environmental Protection Agency, so forth and so on. So it's a win-win situation. On the one hand, the Congress and the agencies have the opportunity to learn from, if you will, this scientist or engineer and have them on board for years in addition to their staffs. The second part of that, of course, is that the scientist and engineer come to Washington to learn a little bit more about how public policy is made. And that we think is very valuable. A good percentage of them stay in Washington and end up working within Congress or the agencies, but another good chunk of them return to wherever they might be in your states to share that knowledge they gained in Washington with others. I'm very happy to announce that in the year 2014-15, we're going to have our very first AAAS Science and Technology Policy Judicial Fellow. The selection process is underway. Some of you may know Judge Barbara Rothstein, former head of the FJC. She serves on our selection committee. And we will be announcing the winner, if you will, in about another month. And he or she will come to Washington and work either for one of the courts or perhaps even the Federal Judicial Center. That's to be determined. But it'll be our first opportunity to reach out to the judicial branch with this particular program at AAAS. So that sort of segues into my program at AAAS. As Francis said, I direct something called the Scientific Responsibility, Human Rights, and Law program. And we're very much focused, if you will, on the intersection between science, law, and technology. We are the only scientific society with a joint standing committee with the American Bar Association. It's called the National Conference of Lawyers and Scientists, made up, as you might imagine, half science and half lawyers. Many of them academics, some of them private practice, and we've even had a judge or two serve on this particular committee. This was formed in 1974 and meets 3 times a year. We've also, since 2001, offered something called these Court-Appointed Scientific Experts Project, CASE, which is when we, in response to a request from a judge, will identify and vet possible experts for that judge to be appointed as a court-appointed expert to serve the court in a case that may be highly technical and a judge is requesting assistance in that regard. Most relevant to this meeting is that since 2006, we've held our own 19 seminars on neuroscience and the law throughout the country. We move it around. We typically have 15 to 20 judges, a little bit smaller than this, and we often involve both state and federal judges. And we do this in collaboration with the FJC, the National Center for State Courts, as well as the Judicial Division at the American Bar Association. So it's very much a collaborative effort, and we have 2 more planned for this year. One will be in early June, and the other will be sometime in the fall. And if you're interested in knowing more about those, please let me know. So I'm delighted to welcome you. I'm looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts and ideas about how the courts should think about, anticipate, respond to some of the advances in neuroscience, and also enjoyed listening to some of the speakers. And if there's something that I can tell you more about AAAS and how we might interact with some of you and your colleagues back home, please buttonhole me during the course of the meeting. I'd be happy to chat with you. So welcome. Let's have a very good meeting, as I think it will be. I'm excited about it, and it's very nice to see so many of you here. And as was said earlier, the demand for this is quite substantial, quite substantial. We also have a waiting list for our programs particularly at the state level. There's a thirst there, if you will, for a little bit more knowledge about this arena, so we're happy to do what we can to fill it. So, thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Mark. That concludes our welcoming remarks, and we get to move into the heart of the program. And we start, and this is by design, with foundational questions. Dr. Aguirre in a moment will talk about how does the brain work and how do we study it. But even before that, and even more foundational, is the question, why should law care about neuroscience at all? And although he's too modest to say it, there's probably no one in the world more qualified to give an answer to that question than Professor Owen Jones. Professor Jones is a professor of law and biology here at Vanderbilt Law School and at the university, and he is director and chair of the Research Network on Law and Neuroscience. He will offer introductory remarks about the intersection of law and neuroscience, and then introduce and moderate Dr. Aguirre's panel, which will cover an introduction to cognitive neuroscience. So Owen, I turn the podium over to you.